Hello and welcome to another episode of Culture Shock. I'm Emma Louise Amantia.
And I'm Sarah Mackenzie. Tonight we're covering all our bases.
Well, almost all.
Ready for some witchcraft? Our Culture Shock team gained exclusive access to the Ashmolean Museum's Spellbound exhibit. And Joseph Morgan Schofield, founder of Future Ritual, will be joining us in the studio to talk all things witchy.
Bless will be chatting to us and performing two songs, Loser and The Skeleton Dance.
Joe Webb, the artist who inspired Coldplay's Grammy Award-winning music video, Up and Up, will be joining us in the studio to talk about his subversive prints and album covers by Janelle Monáe and Tears for Fears. Union Dance will be treating us to a special performance. And forget the Queens, we're here to talk about the Kings, Drag Kings. Stay tuned to see London's underground drag king scene. And back to you, Emma, for our daily news break.
Since its creation in 1995, the Pokémon franchise has been a global phenomenon. Yesterday, the trailer for the first ever live-action Pokémon film called Detective Pikachu was released and has since divided fans. Many took to Twitter to join the conversation, with some fans excited for the nostalgic new film, but many unsettled by the realistic look of Pikachu, who'd originally only ever been animated in 2D. Deadpool star Ryan Reynolds will voice the furry creature when the film comes out next year. Let's take a look to see why this trailer has been so controversial.
Whoever you are, I know how to use this.
Oh, jeez. Here we go.
I know, you can't understand me, but put down the stapler or I will electrocute you.
Oh, how could anyone be against something so cute and furry? Now next, the full lineup for this year's series of I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here has just been announced, following months of rumours and speculation. Among the 10 contestants officially revealed to be heading to the jungle are football manager Harry Redknapp, actor John Barrowman, and X Factor singer Fleur East. The reality series will kick off this Sunday at 9 p.m, with Holly Willoughby stepping in to co-host alongside Deck. American comedian Rob Delaney will make history this week by being the first ever celebrity to sign a CBeebies bedtime story in Makaton. Makaton is a type of signing designed to be used to support spoken language for children with learning or communication difficulties. And finally, an Idris Elba doll worth a massive £850 has been ridiculed on social media for looking absolutely nothing like the Luther star. It didn't take long for Twitter users to catch on to the story, with many noting the lack of resemblance was almost as bad as footballer Cristiano Ronaldo's unfortunate statue bust from earlier this year. However, it seems despite this, the Elba doll has been a hit, and it's now sold out on the company's website. That's it for today's news, but from one amazing story to another, it's over to you, Sarah.
Thanks, Emma Louise. Neeraja Rajkumar uses animation to tell stories as a woman of many talents. In 2011, she was the first place winner of the Emirates Airline Festival of Literature and had her co-authored book published. A few years later, in 2014, Neeraja won the Pearson's English Picture This contest and went on to complete an apprenticeship with the Walt Disney Company in India in 2016. She's now a first-year master's student here at the National Film and Television School, where she continues to hone her art. We start with a clip from Neeraja's very first animated film.
So when I was 7 years old, I first watched The Little Mermaid, and I was blown away by the magic and the melodies. And that was when I realized that I wanted to do this for a living. My name is Neeraja Raj. I'm from the Directing Animation Department, and I'm 24 years old. My first project at the NFTS involved sand. It's a small contained story of child abuse and secrets and trauma that I felt I wanted to raise awareness of, and that's why I decided to do this film. for my next project at the NFTS, we had to do something very experimental and unique. So it starts off with you get a sound from the sound designers, and my sound designer was Tatiana. I think it really pushed me to make a personal film about my existential crisis, which was very fun to do because the technique, especially once I figured it out, I drew keyframes in TV Paint, and then I printed the keyframes out and I colored them in with oil pastels. And then I cut them out and shaped them in ways so I could play with like light and shadow. And that was interesting because I could merge both 2D animation and stop motion. I really enjoy working together with these different creative pursuits. An artist that I love, David Shrigley, he has once said that creativity bleeds into one another. So like you don't have to like segregate each of these different pursuits of yours because you can involve them all together. I love that because I want to involve all my music, my poetry, my writing into my artwork and make them seamlessly blend together to create something magical.
Now, performing their song Loser, let's give it up for Bless.
You look at me like I'm a loser. A bunch of chassis, you're a user. You look at me like I'm a loser. A bunch of chassis, you're a user. You look at me like I'm a loser. A bunch of chassis, you're a user. You look at me like I'm a loser. A bunch of chassis, you're a user. Well, I tell you I'm nothing but a man with pride. I'm sticking around. No! I'm not trying to abuse her. No, I'm not trying to confuse her. Cause life's too short to care about the things that you follow the future soul. And I love the job. The teacher went to the summer song. So take the loser home. Take the loser home. Take the loser home. Come on, go. People only picture the one who's waiting for your baby and he knows. The sun is rising and the time has come to free your mind with your sweet, sweet and young. So sweet and young. So the sadness has gone. You look at me like I'm trying to do you wrong. Oh, baby, no. But when push comes to shove, it's never enough. You'll be waiting and it won't be long. No, it won't be long. Oh, you look at me. You look at me. You look at me like I'm a loser.
Hey, well done. Brilliant. Nice to meet you.
Hey, well done.
Hey, well done.
Thank you very much.
Well
Have a
done.
seat.
Thank you so much.
Well, welcome. Sitting here with us, it is the lead vocalist, Kieran and Joey from Bless. Welcome, guys.
How you doing?
Good, good. That was an amazing performance.
Thank you.
So we'd love to know, how did you guys get together?
Well, we came from a sort of mix of sources, really. We're all sort of based around the Holloway Road of North London. Starts probably about 25 odd years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, we think it was that long. Kieran and Panache went to the same primary school. Don't worry, we're not that old. But
You've given away our age already.
yeah. But yeah, they went to the same primary school. Then myself and Panache went to the same secondary school.
Yeah.
We started a band together called the Supernovas, which Moses was playing drums in.
Right.
Okay.
Kieran was in a band called Dirty Nelly, and we all used to play on the same circuit together. Moses used to moonlight on drums for them sometimes.
Right. So who's Panache in the band?
The bass player.
Yeah.
And Moses is the drummer.
Moses is the drummer.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
And then, yeah, so we basically, it was kind of the next chapter after both of our bands had kind of, like, run their course, sort of thing.
So really, you've been doing it.
Yeah, we spent all of our time together, really,
Yeah.
throughout our 20s. So,
Wasted
like,
our
Oh,
best
that's
years
nice.
and our younger years. as well.
Yeah. And it's a really cool name. How did you guys come up with Bless?
So we rehearse at the Islington Arts Factory.
Oh, yeah, no, yeah.
And so it's a church converted into a music school, a dance school. You can do all sorts there. But we were kind of like finding names. And we went on a recording trip not too long before that. And we had sheets of paper out, like trying to think of band names, couldn't think of it. And the word that we use all the time is bless, you know,
Yeah.
just in everyday life, just like
Yeah.
respect and...
We wanted it to be like a sort of slang word that we use, so we'd sort of run for a few like standard, but standard just sounded like you weren't that good.
Yeah, that's true.
Sheets, like what does that mean? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, but then Kieran was like,
We were
"Is the
standing
church
outside
there
the...
for it?
Yeah,
Just
we were
call
standing
it
outside the
Bless."
church.
Like, perfect.
Nice. It's a good one.
Yeah. Will you tell us a little bit about the Joe Strummer Foundation and how they've helped you guys out?
Yeah, so basically the pub that we kind of met in, but myself and Kieran, and we used to play in there all the time. It's called Nambuka.
Oh, great pub.
Yeah, in Holloway Road. And in 2008, it burnt down. And our old band, the Supernovas, used to rehearse in the basement.
Oh, yeah.
And luckily for us, all of our back line happened to be in the basement as it burnt down. So we lost about $3,000 worth of equipment in the fire. Don't feel too bad for us.
Okay.
The Holloways lost 10 grand.
And Frank
worth.
too.
Yeah. And
that's painful.
so yeah, that was a nightmare. And then, but Strummerville, as it was called then, hadn't been. It was kind of in its infancy at that point. And it had kind of been kicking around for a while, sort of like looking for things to do. It knew what the point of the charity was, to help sort of like struggling bands. And then when they heard there was a couple of bands that had just lost a load of equipment and didn't have a way of sort of being able to get it back, they were generous enough to give us a grant to buy our sort of to get our backline back, as it were. Sort of give us. It was kind of like it was kind of on a sort of an interest-free loan vibe, where it was like, look, here's the money to get your stuff back. You now owe us some gigs, which was great anyway, because as it worked out, the gigs that we were doing with them were better than the ones we were doing.
It's a win-win situation.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. So yeah,
That's
it's great.
amazing.
Yeah, we got to play like a load of sort of festivals around that, and
Oh, that's good.
our old friend Jamie, that used to manage both of our bands from time to time, he's now the head of the Joe. He wasn't at the time, but later on he became the head of what's now called the Joe Strummer Foundation.
Oh, it's a small wee world then.
Yeah.
And how important would you say the Joe Strummer Foundation is to up-and-coming musicians?
I think it's very important.
Yeah.
I think, Joe Strummer, he said something like, without people, you're nothing.
It's true.
And, it's not like, what you know, it's who you know and stuff like that. But it's particularly important for people that can come in, maybe not from, say, less privileged backgrounds and stuff like that got a chance to actually get on a stage and get to gigs, whether it's in a club, in a bar, in a car park, it doesn't matter. They're getting a chance to perform their music, and Joe Strummer's Foundation kind of promotes that and delivers that.
That's amazing.
Gives everyone a chance, basically.
That's definitely a thing in the sort of rock and roll sort of scene in London. You sort of meet a lot of people that they might have, like their parents might have been in bands beforehand.
Yeah.
Doors are a lot easier to open, do you know what
yeah.
I mean? If your mum knows a decent producer,
Of
if your
course.
dad knows someone who's like, can get you on a bit of radio, a bit of this, bit of that. Strummerville was kind of, the idea of it was, among other things, to try and sort of...
Balance that out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Just, not to stop them, but to sort of give other people a sort of nudge as well. Look, these bunches, like...
I like that idea.
All away, like, give them a big
Give them a
help,
chance,
you know,
That's amazing. Well,
not
thank you
just-
so much, guys, for joining us today. It's been really interesting. Thanks to
no
Bless.
worries.
Thank you.
So the boys from Bless will be back later with another song. But for now, watch out. Ads are on the horizon. See you in 2.
For a nice surprise, go to notonthehighstreet.com.
And look in the camera, everyone. Hold still, please. Okay, 3, 2, you two in the back, stop it. You switch with the girl in front, please. Go with the glasses. Go with the glasses, could you? Yeah, just switch. And everyone look into the camera. And hold still. 3, 2, hold still. Go with the glasses, hold still. Hold still.
Vagaband, you're in safe hands.
This man has just stepped on an HSE landmine. Meaning the second he steps off, boom.
What do you mean, boom?
He should be in pieces all over the field.
Pieces?
However, his posture is perfect thanks to the Healthy Backpack, and he'll be able to stand still for hours.
Hours?
The Healthy Backpack helps posture and saves you from landmines.
Oh,
Oh dear.
Ah, see, that break wasn't so bad now, was it? Now, the Times described Union Dance as poetry in motion. It's a dance company making waves in London with the mission to extend the boundaries of formal and informal learning, utilising creativity for artistic development. Here with us are Corinne Bugard, founder of Union Dance, and Sarita Prutowski, the choreographer. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hi. So, Corinne, we would love to know, what made you create Union Dance?
Well, it was quite a long time ago, and I really wanted this idea in movement, which was very different, about identity and representation.
Right.
So it was partly to do with my mix, because I'm South African, so it was like I was Asian, African, European, so how was that represented in England? So it was a bit of a thesis, really.
That's really interesting. Now, as I mentioned, the Times described you as poetry in motion, and your company has a really interesting mix of that lyrical style with martial arts. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, it was just bringing in different genres again, different styles that represented a different way of movement. So that was really a lot of it to do with the unity of the arts and the unity of experience and movement. I think that's about it, really.
It's a beautiful idea.
But it's good because you're going for the juggler, you're hitting something which is different.
Yeah, definitely.
So that was exciting, which we do, you know, 25 touring productions all over the world. It's been quite, and then in all sorts of art galleries like the Saatchi and stuff like that. We've done a lot of galleries in London.
Great.
And yeah, so it's been
quite busy.
Yes, and Sarita and I have worked on quite a few of those projects.
Well, speaking of those projects, you guys recently performed at the British Museum for the Nelson Mandela Centenary Programme. Will you tell us about that?
Well, I mean, I'm talking so
No,
much.
go ahead, go ahead.
I just decided I wanted to be inspired by leadership. Now, especially as you don't want people to be badly informed. And I think that's one of the issues I felt quite strongly about. So I thought we would do something at the British Museum which honoured Nelson Mandela for his birthday, as I was South African, and also work with some South African musicians, music, and the dancers, Sarita choreographing it, and also we had Corinna, a DJ, work with young African entrepreneurs, and we did a whole panel, about them inspiring in a new way. So it's all about people being informed, looking at dance, looking at music, enjoying it, and just inspiring, really, trying to inspire, especially young people.
Lovely. Now, Sarita, I'm going to ask you a question in 1 second. I've got one more for you, Corinne, which is you had the honour of actually meeting Nelson Mandela, didn't you? What was that like?
Oh, it was amazing. I was so in awe of him, and he was the most wonderful person, I felt, because he was so receptive and open and lovely to talk to.
Yeah, they say never meet your idols, but I think that one's a good one too.
I think it was a wonderful moment in life, really.
Yeah.
And now the Nelson Mandela Children's Foundation made me one of their 100 successful women this last week.
Congratulations.
Thank you, and that's an honour too. So the two things marry together because you think, oh my goodness, to be South African and not even live there is really weird. But you're British as well, so that's a good marrying, I think.
Lovely.
So, Sarita, what was the process of coming up with the choreography for Reflection Route, which is the piece we're just about to see?
Lots of different things, really. A lot of stuff came forward from Corinne and her ideas about what she wanted to show and represent with everything that she's just said there and shared with us. But for me, my way in, I guess, when I started out was I started to work with a poem called Invictus, I think it is, yeah. And it was said to be one of his favourite poems and almost like maybe a little bit of a mantra on Google, so, you know, quote me on this. Yeah, it was said to be a poem that inspired him during his time behind bars. And I used that to begin with, and I gave each dancer a different line from each poem, and I just got them to bring something forward that was led or that they kind of felt from reading that line. Right. And then from that, I used the base of that to kind of reform the movement in the way that made sense to the story that we were trying to tell, basically. So that was my way in. Yeah. And we played with that in lots and lots of different ways and forms. And then what you'll see today, Solo, again, is a redevelopment from that pitch from lots of... We had... How many dancers do we have in total?
Oh, about six
main
dancers.
Right. Yeah. So it's like an amalgamation of movement material that formed one thing, and now we kind of developed it and took it somewhere else with Rashad, who you're going to see in a moment.
Lovely. Can't wait to see it.
Can't wait.
So it's time to experience the poetry in motion with Rashad, who'll perform Reflection Route, a beautiful and emotional dance that was, of course, initially performed at the British Museum earlier this year, commemorating the memory of Nelson Mandela.
Wow, what a beautiful piece. Thank you so much. Now, we're in the queendom of drag, but what about the kingdom? From Shakespeare to Lily Savage, Britain is no stranger to men dressing up as women. But what about women or people who don't identify with either gender dressing up as men? Well, it's time to talk about the kings, the drag kings.
Our Culture Shock team interviewed one of London's most prominent drag kings, Adam All, founder of Boybox, a monthly open mic night of drag king performance. Let's get a taste of the kingdom, shall we?
Have you found them yet? I've checked Netflix. They're not on RuPaul's Drag Race. Wait, I think I've got a location on them. They're in Hackney. Hackney? They're in Hackney, of all places. Come on, quick, let's go. Go, go, go.
Yeah, yeah. Give it to me now. Give it to me now. Give it to me now. I wanna lick you from your head to your toes, and I wanna move from the bed down to the floor, and I wanna you make it so good I don't wanna leave.
Hello, I'm Adam All, and I'm a drag king.
I'm turning loose. Pick up the Sunday shoes. Please, Louise, and pull me up from my knees.
Drag king is a lot of things, but it's roughly defined as an entertainer who dons the guise of maleness or masculinity in and for performance.
I need a hit, baby, give me it. You're dangerous, I'm loving it.
Can you fly this plane and land it?
I think drag kings are often really misunderstood. So I identify as non-binary. For me, it means someone that doesn't fit the gender binary system. So what we would identify as male things and female things. Non-binary is anything not in either of those boxes. Adam is sort of male, and I use him and his platform and his expressions to look at what is maleness and how we perceive maleness. I avoid toxic masculinity at all costs. So I try and create a character that's approachable and likeable and fun and bubbly, but also gentle, naive and cartoony and fun. So basically I sort of wanted to create a night that was about drag kings particularly, not overshadowed by anyone else, just their own space, but that it was a space not just for people who are like, well, I'm an established performer and I can come and do this, but that it was a space that could be completely used from start to finish. You could come in having no idea what drag king was and go home with best performer prizes, and you know, so we got a dress up box and we got like a karaoke machine and stick on moustaches, and we were just like, just come and join in. I really wanted it to be sort of like a petri dish of drag king spawn happening, but in a sort of community way, that you'd have the older people or the more established performers or the people who'd been, you know, at it 6 months and scored some amazing gigs or whatever, coming in and helping each other out. And so we kind of created a little family.
Well, hold on just for a little bit, because I'm going to bring onto the stage now someone who's very dear to me, somebody that I have to put up with most days, someone that I love with all of my heart, and next year is going to be my wife. Please welcome to Miss Apple Derriere.
And Apple, my partner, came up with the name Boy Box.
I don't do dick dude. I'm a lesbian.
Boy Box was born. A lot of people say drag kings ought to be allowed on RuPaul's Drag Race, and I think that, although that would be really fun, I don't think that you can measure them in the same way.
Eyes on the chalkboard, I spell it out for you. D to the E to the T to the O to the whole dude. X. Naomi Campbell, Lily's hoes to the crown. Next.
I don't think they speak the same language on stage. It's not really, I mean, there's a lot of things that are similar, but it's not empowering in the same way. It's not speaking to the same people. It's not using the same language. It's not really comparable. I mean, formal wear, for a start, what am I supposed to do in the first sewing challenge? Make an entire suit from scratch?
Sashay away.
There's one thing you can do, which is really important, and everyone can do it. Go to the shows and clap. That's it. Go to the shows and clap and cheer and have a really great time. Go to the shows. Don't just watch it on your phone. Go, buy tickets, sit in the audience, cheer. That's what you can do. We like it. It's our favourite bit. It makes us feel good about ourselves and also pays the bills. I live in London, it's expensive.
We should celebrate all aspects of drag royalty, the queens and kings alike. The next Boy Box event is on November 29th at the Glory in Hackney. See you there.
The collage that catapulted him into the public eye, Antares and Love 2, also won him a solo show at the Saatchi Gallery in 2012. His work has graced album covers from Janelle Monáe to Tears for Fears. He was also named one of the Evening Standard's exciting young British artists to look out for in 2017. And he's also known for inspiring Coldplay's video Up and Up. Let's take a look at it.
Fixing up a car, driving it again. Searching for the water, hoping for the rain. Up and up, up and up. Down upon the canvas, working in a meal. Waiting for a chance to pick an Irish field. Up and up, up and up. See a bird form a diamond in a rough. See a bird soaring high, but the flood is in your blood.
We are delighted to have with us Joe Webb. Hi, Joe.
Oh.
Great. So I've heard you started creating collages because you just got fed up on computers. Is this true?
Yeah.
And what led you to that?
Well, I was working as a graphic designer on a computer.
Yeah.
And I just never left the screen. I was always on Photoshop and having clients sort of changing things. And I just felt like it wasn't really contributing a lot.
Right.
And I was really just bored of it. So I started making handmade artworks as a bit of an escape from the screen and Photoshop. And it was just for my own pleasure and interest, really. It wasn't for...
And then it turned out you were really good at it.
Yeah, it's not actually that difficult. No, it's...
Don't say that.
Yeah, it just kind of spiraled into this thing where now it's kind of my job.
Yeah, it's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, will you tell us about your first print?
My first print?
Yeah.
Which...
So the one that got you into the Saatchi Gallery?
Antares and Love.
Antares and
yeah,
Love.
So I was making the collages and I spotted that they had a collage competition. So I was kind of like, thought, well, that might be a good idea to enter. And it kind of... The prize was to show in the Saatchi, so
Amazing.
I entered it, and then it ended up winning and going into the Saatchi, and then that was the start of it, really.
It's a pretty good start.
It's all been downhill since then.
Don't say that. Will you just talk us through the process of actually making your collages and prints? Like, how do you start?
It's all down to sort of serendipity and luck. I kind of, I don't plan anything too much. I just sort of follow my interests. So, you know, I'm trying to talk about the environment, issues about the world.
We've got a great one here, actually. That's amazing.
Yeah, so that's before the war. So you've kind of got this sort of rose-tinted spectacles of, you know, and it's kind of a reminder that these war-torn towns, like Syria and stuff, were once like bustling places, you know, with restaurants and people enjoying themselves. And now you sort of see them on TV and you kind of just go, oh, it's just a war-torn
I think people forget that.
And it's like real people's lives have been completely destroyed. So it's kind of, I'm trying to look at kind of quite hard-hitting and up-to-date issues, but I kind of try and poke a bit of fun at things and try and have a bit of humour, sort of dark humour in the work.
Yeah. So we saw on the VT earlier, Coldplay's Grammy Award-winning music video, Up and Up. How was it influencing them?
I mean, the collage style that I'm working in, it's become like a bit of a ubiquitous kind of style now. So...
But you started it.
I mean, I started in about 2010, and now it's like, if you go on Instagram, it's kind of like everywhere.
Right.
Okay. And there was a few people, but it's literally just become like this mass thing. So I think it's that kind of style where people are looking at the world a bit differently, more thoughtfully, and you know, just looking at things with a more sort of inquisitive angle, and that's bled through into sort of popular culture, and it's ended up sort of in a pop video.
Yeah, and you created album covers for musicians like Janelle Monáe and Tears for Fears. How was it working with them and the process of that?
Yeah, it was really good. It's easy. It was easy because Tears for Fears just wanted an image that I'd already done. So I was like, okay,
oh, great.
Right. Janelle Monáe was a bit more like we worked through loads of images, and then we ended up coming back to one that I'd already done.
So this one, that's the cover there.
Which you know, so that could have been easy, but it wasn't. But,
well, it looks amazing.
It looks really cool. Now, a lot of your previous work was highly political or satirical, but recently you've added a bit more humour. So why is that?
I just didn't want it to be too negative and too much of a downer. So you kind of have to have this balance. So you can sort of lead people in, and people see something and think, oh, that's a really cool image. Then you can sort of like hit them around the head with something a bit more harsh.
Yeah.
So you've got some work coming up at the Saatchi Gallery. It opens on the 5th of December. Tell us a little bit about what you could see there.
It's kind of going back to more sort of political things and talking about the environment, global climate change, global warming, and just the sort of general political climate. You're kind of looking at sort of even like conspiracy stuff that's all over the internet and all of that, and it's looking at that and asking what's real and what's not real. And
we've got a great one of your collages here.
Yeah, that's
Arctic Tears, is it?
Yeah. I mean, I just did that 2 days ago.
Oh, really?
And it's just
exclusive.
It's just like, it's a good example of like how I'll just wander around a charity shop or something and find an image and then sort of pair it with something else, and there's no photoshopping or changing. The sort of eyes have to match, the colours match. It's all just sort of like this pure luck, really.
Wow.
And it's sort of, it's just like simplicity of an image, you know, and the less I do to it, the more sort of impact it seems to have.
Yeah. Well, great. Thank you so much, Joe. You can catch his work at the Saatchi Gallery from the 5th of December to the 6th of January. Uh-oh, brace yourselves. It's time for an ad. Whilst we're away, why don't you tweet in what spell you would cast on someone using the hashtag #SpellShock. We'll be right back with some witchcraft.
Shake the monster off your back. Get the healthy back bag.
Frankincense. Gold.
Oh my God, that is proper nice.
You like that, darling?
This is really good website.
Meet Sarah. She's backpacking on her gap year. She's a vagabander, all her medical details stored safely on her wrist, should she get into any heated situations. Deep water, trouble with locals, perhaps a nasty sting, maybe takes a tumble, or any other calamity along her travels. The vagabond remains indestructible. Unlike Sarah, she's a puppet.
We asked, you tweeted. It's time for the daily tweet. Using the hashtag #SpellShock, we asked you earlier, if you could cast a spell on anybody, what would it be and what would you call it? Here's what some of you said.
Well, our first one is from @MortisonLev. Hello, I'd like to sing like Adele from the other side. Hashtag voicebox spell, hashtag #SpellShock, hashtag TV culture shock.
This one's a little bit creepy from @AlexCartilage. It says, what makes you think I haven't already? Hashtag witchy, hashtag supernatural, hashtag I'm a witch.
Well, Sabrina would definitely approve of some of those bewitching tweets. But sorry, Sabrina, the cat's out the bag. The Spellbound exhibition at the Ashmolean Museum exposed your magic tricks. Let's take a sneak peek at what's there. that teaser gave me the chills. Now, we sent our location reviewer, Joseph Morgan Schofield, to check out Spellbound. He's here live in the studio with us to tell us all. Hi, Joseph.
How are you doing?
Good, good. So, how do you feel the exhibition tackled the history of magical thinking?
So what it's really trying to do is talk about witchcraft and talk about other kind of folkloric practices, largely through an exhibition that's made up of objects, right, of kind of like historical artifacts, with some kind of contemporary installations and some kind of like dramatised audio installations and stuff going on also.
Great. Yeah. Okay, let's take a look at the print of a witch with a mandrake. Tell us about that.
So one of the rooms is basically given over to these etchings and depictions of witches.
Oh, there you go.
And all of these etchings, most of which are done by male artists, usually all depicting female subjects. What they really do is kind of give the sense of the anxiety that kind of surrounded ideas of witchcraft and ideas of magical practices. An anxiety, I think, that comes out of a sense that the women depicted, these witches, really completely subverted any sense of the idealised woman, right, in a kind of Christian medieval society. So they're depicted as threats to patriarchal power.
Right. Some things don't change.
Yeah, sure. But kind of the other layer to that, as all these things kind of are subject to the male gaze, really, is as well as being meant to be kind of be horrific to the viewer. I think there's also a sense that they're meant to kind of have this erotic charge also, and it's kind of all framed in this quite misogynistic way.
Right. Okay. There's another image of the witch's chair, which is at the exhibition, which you can see here. So tell me about that.
Sure. So. We spoke to the curator about this, and what this kind of was just in a town, and the idea was that the witch would be placed in it, and if they weighed less or more than the Bibles, that meant something. It was interpreted as something.
Oh.
And when they were hanging the chair, they found that it was really easy to fix it, basically. So, like, depending on where you move this little bit of metal, the Bibles would either drop or not drop, and they speculate that this could either be used to fix that someone was a witch, or to kind of say that they weren't, and to kind of reassure the populace that the government, the local government, was sort of doing something about this witch problem.
Right.
So it kind of goes either way.
And do you think it highlights the fact that essentially a lot of witchcraft was just trying to silence women? Does it focus on that, or does it focus more on the magical side of it?
Really, they're talking about magical thinking. I think this is somewhere that actually the exhibition sort of slips up in the sense that the history of witchcraft around the world and in Europe, and it's really talking about a European context, is one of kind of violence and suffering, and violence is visited on women, on gender non-conforming people throughout the history. So I think it's possibly chased as a kind of Gothic sensibility often. Although they do acknowledge this in some interesting ways. There's an audio installation about this person who believed they were a witch, and what had happened was that they had their children. Most of their children had died, and their husband had died, and they had one surviving child. And they believed that they'd been visited by demons and familiars and spirits who said, "If you surrender your soul, we will save your final child." And she eventually confessed to all this and signed this confession, and the audio installation dramatises that. And it was just really compelling because there's a sense that what we would understand now as really this person having undergone this really horrible and traumatic event and being kind of faced with this grief, obviously that affects the way you perceive the world. But this belief that really these things had happened to her, and this kind of driven conviction that she was guilty of witchcraft was really horrible and moving and compelling, and was quite an unusual.
Sounds fascinating. Thank you so much. It was a really insightful exhibition, obviously. Thank you. Well, that's enough magic for today.
Is there really ever enough magic for one day?
Okay, Salem and Sabrina may disagree, but whatever you do, don't miss Blessie's performance of their song, The Skeleton Dance, right here. But before that, this is Emma Louise's last show. So the whole Culture Shock team want to say a massive thank you. It's been an absolute pleasure working with you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah and everyone. Culture Shock is back again tomorrow for the final time, same place, looking at the art of the human body. Now let's give it up for Bless.
Welcome to the skeleton dance at the side above the door, and I went, oh, oh, oh. We went to see the Sophie Palmer, said he just sailed in from France. He threw us up 2 cups of poison, and then we both went to dance. Some dead guys in a corner that I thought I recognized. I don't know what they take you, man, but they all had Jurassic eyes. I went, oh, you all know the one with the well-known routine, and everybody has to laugh. Yeah. That's all well, it always takes me back. And I get nightmares every time I hear that track, and I don't want to go back to the place where the skeleton dance was held. There were spiders in the toilets the size of 18-year-old girls, and I won't go. No, never, never again. Oh no, no. It's me, it was in full swing, and all the fans were dancing too. There was more blood than a Tarantino film, but they all did the boogaloo. But when they played the Gangnam Style, all the vampires, they went wild, and I went running for the door like a hysterical screaming child. I went, and we got to go straight home. And as the tears ran down my cheeks, the pain dripped down to the ground below, and I tried to stand, but I fell to the deck. And as she wiped her mouth clean, as the blood ran from my neck, and I won't go. Back never.